So we are going to be discussing functions, methods, and objects. One thing that newer object-oriented programmers get a little confused on is, when is a routine a function and when is a routine a method? And basically the difference between a function and a method is that a method is called by an object. So if you're calling a routine that is preceded by a variable and a dot, so before the name of the routine, you have a variable and a dot, then you are calling a method. The variable and the dot represent an object. Okay, so only class objects can call methods. If you are calling a routine that is not preceded by anything, okay, so it's just the name of the routine, then you are calling a function. So we are going to be covering JavaScript functions first, and then we're going to be taking a look at objects and methods. So basically, a function is just a routine that is designed to perform usually a single task. It usually just performs one thing. And a function is executed when it is called. So the syntax to create a function is you have to use the keyword function, followed by whatever you are going to name the function. And then in parentheses, you can send it parameters, which are just variables or data that the function needs when it's running. Now, if the function doesn't need anything when it's running, you can have the parentheses empty. Okay? But you do need to have the parentheses there. So whether they have variables in them or they are empty, they are required. And then you'll notice there's an opening curly brace and a closing curly brace, and that signifies the beginning and the end of the function code. And then in between those curly braces is the code that the function is going to execute. So here's a little example. And this does not have any parameters. So you will notice that we have the keyword function. The name of the function is called favorites. Then we have the left and right parenthesis with nothing inside, so there's no parameters. We have the opening and closing curly brace. The slash is one way of inserting a comment. And so this is just telling you that the three variables here are considered local variables. We're going to talk about scope in a little while. But basically, a local variable is something defined inside a function. And so you'll see that we have a variable called movie, song, and sport. In JavaScript, you can use the prompt method. This is a Windows method, and it'll display a little open window. And in this case, it's going to display the text, "What is your favorite movie?" You're going to type a response, and that response gets stored in this movie variable. Okay? And song is going to do something similar. It's going to display a little box, "What is your favorite song?" They'll type their response. That gets stored in the song variable. Okay? And sport works kind of the same way. So here's our function. Now, somewhere in your HTML, you are going to call that function. And because it is JavaScript, you will typically have an opening script tag and a closing script tag. It is assuming JavaScript, so in between is where you put your JavaScript code. Here's a little comment that says global variable because we are basically declaring name here and it is not inside a function. Okay, so that makes it global. We'll be talking more about that in a few minutes. So this is prompting, what is your name? They're going to key in an answer, it gets stored in name. To display that back, we have document.writeLine, and then you'll notice inside the double quotes, we are actually writing out some HTML code, okay, along with some text. We are concatenating that with what is stored in the name variable. And then we're writing out some closing HTML. Okay, so what is your name? We display it back. And this is where favorites is called. So at this point, the control is going to go into the favorite function. And you're going to see 3 prompts. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. And again, this is a function that does not have parameters. Now, quite often, a function actually needs data passed in order for the function to run. And so here we've got a function called inch to centimeters, inch to cent. Okay. And we are going to be pulling in a parameter called inches. So when this function is called, in parentheses, it's being sent a value. When we're inside the function, we are going to refer to that value using the variable inches. And now you'll see we have a variable called centimeters. We're taking whatever is stored in inches and we're multiplying that by 2.54. Okay, and then alert is a Windows method that basically displays a pop-up box. So it's going to display the inches that was passed. This is a little concatenator. And then we're adding on a little text string, inches equal, concatenating that with the centimeters that was calculated, and adding a little string onto the end. So let's say 10, or why don't we make it easy? We'll just say 1 was passed. Okay, so inches has 1 in it. That would make centimeters 2.54. So what the alert is going to say is 1 inches equals 2.54 centimeters. Okay, so that is our function. To code the function call, you can do it in a couple different ways. Here we got a little prompt for them to enter the inches. We're storing it. Here is where we are calling the function. You can see we're taking whatever they entered for inch and we're passing that along. So that's one way to do it. Another way to code the same exact thing, instead of having 2 separate statements, you can do it in one. So we've got inch to centimeter, this is our function, and inside the parentheses, we have the prompt. So the prompt is enter the number of inches you want converted. Whatever they type is what gets passed to inch to centimeter. So there's 2 different ways to do this. Usually beginners prefer the first method. After you've been coding a while, you like to take shortcuts, you may prefer the second method. Either one of them is correct. Method 2 is probably a little bit more efficient just because we aren't trying to store anything in memory. Hey, they're keying it in, we're passing it along. Hey, but you can do it either way, whatever way makes more sense to you. So here is the full program. not very long. So you can see here's our inch to centimeter function. Okay, and one of the places that you can put JavaScript functions is up in the head section of your HTML. Okay, we have an opening script and a closing script tag and the function in between. Okay, then in the body, we have another opening and closing script, and this is the call to inch to centimeter. And you can see that we've got the prompt there right inside the parentheses. So now that we've discussed how that works, if I click on the link, okay, you can actually test it out. Okay, so that's the alert box that displays. And let me go back. Let's see. So we've talked about the functions that don't have any parameters. We've talked about the functions where you actually are passing data. And now we're going to talk about a function that returns data. Okay, so in this little example, we're still using inch to centimeters. We still have the inches parameter. Okay, but instead of doing the calculation and using the alert, we are returning the results of the calculation. Okay, so how does this work? In the body, we've got our inch variable where they've entered the number of inches and we store it. Okay, and then we've got document.writeLine. Okay, so we're writing out a paragraph. We are going to write out whatever they keyed in for inches. Got a little string that says inches equals. And now we're calling inch to centimeter. We're passing it inch. So let's say they did 1. Okay, so we pass a 1 up here. It's going to return 2.54 to this location. So 2.54 will get printed out. Okay, followed by the word centimeters. And if you want to see how that one works, the number of inches, so we'll make this easy. We'll do a 1. And you can see that it printed that out. If you use write or writeLine, you do need to put the script inside the body. Okay? Anytime you are trying to write to the page, it has to be in the body of your HTML. What happens if it's not in the body? It actually tries to write to a new screen. If you would like more information on functions, you can go to W3 Schools. There are quite a few interactive examples that you can work through. Here is 2 different parameters being passed. Okay, and it's calling a function that does a calculation, so you can kind of read through this. I've got my function. Here it's multiplying the 2 numbers together. And here it's doing a function call. And it's got 4 and 3. You can actually change that and run it again. And you'll see a little different result. Okay, and if you scroll down here, there's typically additional functions that you can try out. And the infamous Celsius to Fahrenheit calculation that you've probably seen all over the place. Okay, so I would highly recommend coming in here, kind of working through these as well. And the next video is going to discuss scope.